This is the Rick Howe Show on News 95.7. Now, here's Rick.
3:50 is our timer right now, and the federal government announced this week it's going ahead with a patient trial of a controversial experimental treatment for multiple sclerosis, the so-called liberation therapy. But Nova Scotia MS sufferer Chris Alkenbrack isn't doing the dance of joy over the announcement. He, of course, has already undergone the therapy, and he's urging Ottawa and the provinces to allow the treatment now. And Chris joins us on the phone this afternoon from his home in the Annapolis Valley. Hi, Chris.
Hi, how are you doing, Rick?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, pretty good.
Good. How you feeling, by the way?
Well, I'm fine. It's been not to be too precise, but it's been 2 years, 4 months, and 15 days since my procedure. I've at least half of my MS symptoms are still at bay. So that's pretty good.
And that would indicate that there's something to this liberation therapy.
Absolutely. It sure beats injecting the ovarian cells of Chinese hamsters or taking chemotherapy, which are the other, a couple other traditional treatments for MS.
Really?
Yes.
Yikes. I didn't know that.
Yep.
You're not real, big on this announcement by the feds that they're going ahead with a patient trial of the experiment.
No, I think I think they're just planning to undermine a bill that's being proposed, actually, that will be discussed tomorrow in committee, a Senate committee, proposed actually by our own Senator Jane Cordy here from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, and I think it's just an announcement to undermine her proposed bill.
What's her bill?
They do that all the time.
What's her bill proposing?
Well, it's an act to establish a national strategy for chronic cerebral spinal venous insufficiency, and basically, if I quickly, the goal of the bill is to ensure proper follow-up care. Number one, to estimate required funding for the clinical trial process, and to establish a panel of experts. And I say the word experts with a little bit of sarcasm, because the people in charge of the clinical trials now, in my opinion, are not the experts that we need.
Well, I'm looking here that Vancouver MS researcher Dr. Anthony Trabulsi.
Yeah, Trabulsi, yes.
Will head up this latest federal government-sponsored study.
That is correct. And Dr. Trabulsi was one of the first naysayers in this whole process, calling into question, whether CCSVI even existed. And so rather than putting doctors like Dr. Sandy McDonald, for example, who has actually performed the procedure, been involved in having the procedure performed 7 times in Canada, we're putting neurologists who have no experience with this in charge of the study.
Interesting. And do you think that's on purpose?
Oh, I personally, yeah, absolutely. I think it's on purpose.
And
they'll do everything to undermine this and to keep this in the to keep the status quo in MS research and so forth.
But aside from your own personal history here in regards to undergoing the therapy, undergoing the treatment, and its apparent success, and we know there are other success stories as well, but there have been some failures too, and so you have to admit that this thing perhaps still very much up in the air, don't you not think?
Well, I think any treatment for MS, there's successes and failures. If I were just to look at one of the drug treatments that they propose, Tysabri is one of the mainline therapies for MS, and as of September 5th, 2012, there have been internationally 285 confirmed cases of permanent brain infection worldwide, including 62 deaths from the first line medication used for multiple sclerosis. There's been the first oral medication came out about a year ago, I believe. It was Gilenya, and there's been 15 deaths already associated with that was trumpeted by MS neurologists and so forth. So yeah, of course, there have been 3 deaths reported in the in the media of people from having this treatment. Directly related. However, part of those deaths may have been preventable if the patients had proper follow-up care. I've dealt with that on other interviews, Rick. The patients just didn't have proper follow-up care.
And that's been a consistent theme of yours here, the follow-up care. There's a real lacking, that patients who have gone abroad because it's not provided, the treatment is not done here in Canada. States, you personally went to Poland, but when you come back, many doctors are just refusing to provide that follow-up care.
That is correct. They'll say, a friend of mine, she got told in Montreal, go back to Poland, if you want follow-up care. That's not always possible. And that's one thing that distinguishes the announcement for the clinical trials, okay, that was made on September 28th by the Canadian Institutes of Health Research, and Jane Cordy's bill to develop a national strategy for CCSVI research. One of the really major parts of Jane's bill, or Senator Cordy, I should say, out of respect, one of the main parts is that she wants proper follow-up care in Canada. Even the proposed clinical trial, they don't even mention follow-up care.
Really?
So phooey on those who've been overseas and had treatment. You're not going to get follow-up care. Another thing too is, how are they going to select that? And I mean, seriously, it's limited to BC, Quebec, and Manitoba will be added later when they get ethics approval. I love Kirsty Duncan's statement in an interview with CCSVI Ontario, where she says, well, the country has been miniaturized,
I can't figure out sometimes what the logic behind government actions here. We've got less than a minute now, Chris. Jane Cordy's bill that'll come before the House tomorrow, it's a private member's bill. Chances of those getting passed remote to slim?
Yes, possibly. However, we have to have a paper trail that we have fought for this cause. And Senator Cordy was actually at the conference that I attended in Okotoks, Alberta, just on last Sunday. I just arrived home last night, and Senator Cordy was there. And she will push to get this bill through, and hopefully she will not be undermined by the CIHR, the MS Society of Canada, and the Canadian Network of MS Clinics. And that we will get this bill through, and we won't have to, as in the words of Linda Hume-Sastry from CCSVI Ontario, we won't be maintaining the status quo by keeping the neurofoxes in charge of the CCSVI hen house.
Well, listen, Chris, again, I thank you very much for your time here this afternoon.
Good luck. Pleasure, Rick.
Good luck with your efforts, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Anytime.
All right, bye-bye. Bye. That's Chris Alkenbrack, and he is, again, a member of the National CCSVI Society Board, and has been long time a campaigner in favor of this treatment, the liberation treatment for MS sufferers. Coming up.